All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined today by my brother, the Gritty Broman. How are you, Brent?
I'm well, thank you.
Right on. So we're going to dive right into this initial Ascent backpack, my experience with it, what my thoughts are, how it performed. It won't be a really long podcast because I just dropped one yesterday with the two owners, Joe and Dennis, and we gave you kind of overview of the pack. But I just want to let you know how it performed for me, what I liked about it, what I think its strengths are, some of the weaknesses, and just boil it down. Okay, but before we do that, we are working with Sheep Feet, Custom Orthotics. Use the code GRITTY there. I can't recommend those enough. They are inserts, custom orthotics for your boot. You know, I sprained my ankle a little bit ago. I think I tore a ligament, and it was pretty wrecked. I have some ankle braces that I've used throughout my life because I've torn the ligaments in my ankle before that are really good. I'm going to get into that in a separate podcast, but I ran the Laponia on this trip with an ankle brace instead of, because the ankle brace can be a little bulky instead of my Crispy Nevadas, which are a much more bulky boot and form fitting. Worked great. Those Laponia are such a legit boot. It's just they don't have the ankle support. But man, I'm thinking about just running now ankle braces inside the Laponia. Check that out. So that's my opinion. Check those out. But they do support the show as well. So I'm definitely happy about that. But use the code GRITTY at Sheep Feet, and it helps everyone, and you're not going to be disappointed. Now, a lot of you guys listen to the podcast that we just published yesterday, where we were talking with Dennis Stokes and Joe Elliston, who are the owners of Initial Ascent. And I had a conversation with them earlier today, and they're totally cool. They're going to run a coupon code for everybody. So for those of you that are listening that are interested in the Initial Ascent pack, if you run the code GRITTY, you're going to save some money. And it's going to help us. It's going to help you. It's going to help them. It's pretty cool. So if you're interested in the pack, if it speaks to you, if it's something you're keen on after today's show, use the code GRITTY and check it out. Okay, so let's get into the backpack here. This is my tripod behemoth, which I carry to hold. The lens I use for filming long range is 200 to 600 millimeters, and it's got a pretty good aperture for having that focal range. And then I have a doubler on it, and so I ended up going to this tripod because, gosh, it's so hard to get such a heavy system to balance and pan and work well on a tripod. And it shakes in the wind a lot. And a lot of times you'll tighten the head, and then the weight of the lens will just still drag it down. A lot of guys who use underpowered spotting or tripods with their heavy spotting scopes, they know what I'm talking about. They've got their phone scope on there on this giant heavy tripod, this heavy glass, and then they're trying to film the animal, and they lock their tripod, and then the phone scope goes and falls off the animal, and they're tilting it back and tightening it, tilting it back and tightening it, trying to get that perfect balance. I can't afford to do that when I'm filming. It just needs to stick, and this is a counterbalance. So it's all weighted and balanced for the head itself. So when I tilt it forward, it just stays there. If I tilt it up, it stays up. I don't need to even lock it for it to stay in position. So the only reason I bring this up is I'm carrying a lot of camera gear. I'm carrying this. I'm carrying 3 cameras, sometimes 2 cameras. I got heavy lenses, batteries. I got a lot. I got 20 to 25 pounds of camera gear. I brought the gimbal this time, the Ronin, to get some shots I wanted. And so already I'm carrying more than the average Joe just because of the film work that we do. And then we're hiking so remote, we're going in for 10 or 12 days. We'll bring 12 days of food. Like, we're talking about staying out there for a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. Well, 12 days of food times about 2 pounds a day is 24 pounds of food. Now, when you come back, of course, you hope you've eaten it all by then. But still, 24 pounds of food is a lot of weight. So we're expedition style going back, and I'm carrying heavy camera gear and a lot of food. Already, you need a pack that can do that. My biggest concern, one of the biggest concerns I had with the initial Ascent pack was the cubic inches. It's like, I think this is somewhere around 6,500 cubic inches or something like that is like their biggest pack, almost 7,000 maybe. You kind of need 8,000 cubic inches to really expedition style go out there, especially if you kill an animal and you got to load it in the pack and hike it out. And like that Stone 7,900, we fill that to the brim, like on all our hunts, on the way in and on the way out. So I feel like this pack needs slightly more capacity for that. But most guys are going for 5 days or a week max. And this is a perfect size. The things that I really liked about this pack, by the way, and I'll pull this pad off here. It's filthy. But if you look at the pack, it's really unique, as we talked about in the last episode, with the way that it has the frame designed. So this frame, it's almost like a piece of plywood. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it flexes and stuff, but it's a board. It's a stiff board. A lot of backpacks have stays, which is they have sewn sleeves, and then they have like one strip of fiber or something that goes in there, maybe carbon, wood, whatever. And then they have another strip crossing, or, stones are circular. A lot of the Kafaru is flat, or there's a combination of both in these packs. And that way they're able to stay lightweight, still provide support and a frame to help you carry the load, but also be lightweight. Well, this material that they have in the initial Ascent, this like board, I don't know exactly, carbon fiber, I think is what it's made out of, and they should probably said in the last show, but it's been over a month and a half.
I'm pretty sure it's carbon fiber.
And
because they likened it to like arrows, how arrows can take a lot of force going one direction because they lower it in a specific way.
It is freaking tough. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is.
They use the analogy of the diving board, how a diving board could be really stretchy one way, and then you turn it sideways and it's not moving.
Well, the thing about this is, just talking about the frame, okay, at first I wasn't sure because it's so different. Mm-hmm. But then I started loading loads into it, and I was hiking up the mountain with 80, 85 pounds pre-hunt, 90 pounds, just to see how it felt. The thing that the pro about this pack, shining star about this pack, is that the heavier it gets, the better it feels. Because see how stiff this thing is? And it's tied right to your hips. And the way they built the hip belt, it sticks. It sticks right on your waist. It's a little harder. Like the Stone also sticks. It finds your waist and you just buckle it and it's there. It doesn't slip down. It doesn't fall over your butt crack. It doesn't slide, right? This pack, it doesn't slide either. Now, it doesn't quite conform as comfortable as the Stone does around your hips and stuff. But it's not uncomfortable. It just goes there, and but it doesn't move. And the heavier the load, the more you're like, all the weight's just on your hips. And the pack, because the pack is stiff the way it is and the way it's connected to the hip belt here, Dennis mentioned how he had low back pain. Mm-hmm. And he had some problems with it. And backpacks would put pressure on his back. And he would struggle with back problems because his back has got issues. And so they were striving to build a pack that really put that weight on their hips. My experience, though, with packs that put weight on the hip, that really drive weight to the hips, there's big problems with those. Almost every time I get a pack, and this is true for my Stone Glacier, I cinch it up. I put all that weight on the hips. I loosen. I drive the load lifters down a little bit. I got the shoulder straps like set just right so that the weight of the pack is driving to the hips, and I shift it off on my shoulders. So my upper body and my spine and my back doesn't have any weight on it. When I do that with a Stone or another brand pack, usually, especially with a heavy load, 100 pounds, it cuts the circulation off to my lower legs almost every time. So I have to actually take some of that load off my hips and transfer it back to the shoulders so that the blood flow actually goes to my legs. Not everyone has the same anatomy. Not everyone experiences that, but I do. I experience that every time I to get that weight on there. And so when it drives down to my hips, the circulation gets a little bit cut off to the lower legs, and then the lower legs, I have a hard time like bringing my legs up just because of the way the pack is fitting. And I find it fatiguing to have the weight on my hips like that, just the way that it rides. It's like, it just doesn't feel good. So I have no choice but to transfer that weight like half and half from my hips to my shoulders a little more, or 70-30. And I don't mind. At that ratio, it feels good. The stone feels good with that kind of load. And with the weight shifting back and forth. Okay. So, but with this pack, it's the only pack I've ever run where I can actually take the entire load, be it 130, 40 pounds, drive it to my hips, and I don't feel any numbness or discomfort in my hips, and the pack does not slide down. It just sticks. And that weight is almost completely off my shoulders, and yet it's because the pack, I think, is wider. Remember how they designed it so it's wider? Like the stone is quite narrow, and it sticks out straight off the back. Well, the further it is from your body, of course, the more you're fighting it to hold it up, right? That's why when you load a stone glacier, you just keep the heavy stuff up on the 2/3 the upper 2/3 of the pack, and you keep them close to your body, and you put all your soft stuff around it. Well, this pack, you want to load most packs the same way with the weight. You kind of want it in the upper 2/3, closer to your body, and the lighter stuff at the bottom, and sticking, taking up the space outward. But this pack, it's wide. And so that weight gets distributed across your hips all the way around instead of just right over the center of my low back. And
it's using the whole hip, not just the back.
Yes. And so when the load is in there as well, the load, it feels like you're not carrying as much weight as you are, period. It just doesn't feel as heavy.
It's dispersed more evenly across your hips.
And and because it's spread out, and then because it's not sticking out far, like my pack is only sticking out like this far off my back.
True. It's very close to you.
So it's really close to your body because it's spread wide, the width of your body. So it's mechanically it's leveraging your body well. Okay. And it really is saving your back and your spine and your shoulders and the compression that you're going to feel from other packs I've run before. So I was really impressed with that. And the heavier the load, you throw that pack on, and you're like, man, I added 20 pounds to this, but it kind of feels the same as it did 20 pounds ago. Like it just really holds it all on your hips. I don't feel a lot of pressure, downward pressure on my upper shoulders or my chest or my back. A lot of times my right lumbar right here in my back will flare up a little bit just because your back is using muscles to keep the pack from going backward, especially like on a stone.
It's like bracing your upper back.
Yeah, and so you're kind of leaning forward. Plus, you are using more of your upper body to handle the load. You're carrying it. The load is like fastened to the board, and the board is fastened to your hips, and it's angled, and its width keeps it like right there in the most efficient load bearing space that you can. There's a little airflow that goes right here in your back, which is nice. So I don't get the same sweaty nastiness that I get from, most other packs. So there's a little airflow pocket there, and it fits nice on the shoulders. So I don't know. I was really impressed with that. So the downside, though, is the same thing that is its strength is also its weakness. So when we were climbing over blowdowns and ducking under logs and climbing, through stuff, and you have a heavy load on, this pack, it's like the board. It's stiff, and your weight is stiff, and it's stuck on the board, fastened to your hips. So you can't bend and twist the same as easily as you can with the stone, because it kind of bends the way the stays are built with you. Okay. So, but with that, you feel all that weight on your shoulders and your back and stuff and your chest in a way you don't with this pack. Right. And so what I ended up doing, especially because, when your pack's 50 or 60 pounds, it's not that heavy. And I've got really a lot of the weight being carried on my hips. When I was going over blowdowns and through logs and stuff, I loosened the shoulders just a touch and the load lifters just a touch so that the pack wasn't as tight to my back. And that allowed me to flex and move and get places comfortably. But I did feel strapped to a board on when it was super tight. Now, once your load is, 90, 85, 90 pounds, 120 pounds, you're not bending over anyway.
No, you're not. No.
You're kind of staying as vertical as possible because the load's so heavy, it's hard to do.
You're going around things. You're not going over or under.
Exactly. So it didn't really matter for me once I got heavy because I'm not really doing, and it only was an issue too on one of the hunts where we were dealing with tons of deadfall. I didn't even notice it on the first couple of weeks that stiffness would be
a problem,
a little bit uncomfortable when I'm dealing with that situation. But I would take, I actually, some guys may not like a stiff pack. Some guys really, really are like a super flexible pack. The problem with a super flexible pack is you feel that weight kind of like a gunny sack just everywhere across the pack. And so you really aren't as comfortable often. And you certainly can't ride the load on your hips. Like if you have a herniated disc or low back pain or other issues, or your back just kills you after hunts, dude, this pack is your jam right here. This initial Ascent completely, like I was saying this to Ryan. I'm like, Ryan, when I hike with this, and we got 20, 30 years more, we want to keep doing this. I can feel the mileage on my low back is, the wear and tear on my discs, and I herniated my discs in my low back years ago. It's just not compressing. Like I feel like sometimes my spine is just compressing week after week, day after day on these hunts. With this, none of it. It just felt like I'm going to live longer, better back over time with this pack. I think a lot of guys, outfitters and guides that are out there just cranking on packs all day long, I don't think they realize, 4 or 5 months out of the year, they're wearing these packs with heavy loads and how much pressure that's putting on their spine all day long and those discs. And with this, dude, it just sticks on your waist and the weight is there and it doesn't feel uncomfortable. It just rides.
How were the straps? Because I remember them saying that they picked a specific kind of almost L shape for the straps.
The straps feel really good. And the load lifters, you can adjust them right here in the pack, which I did often. So one thing about it, he showed me here, like with these load lifters right here, see how the frame is tall? And I can tighten that and adjust those load lifters how I want, but I can also pull this.
That's right. You can bring the whole load lifter down.
This load lifter out, and I can go, my load's not very light. I want it to be a little more flexible. I want to be a little more nimble. I'm not going to ride the load on my hip as much. I want it on my shoulders, and boom. Now I got the load lifter. But when you load your pack super heavy,
you want them high.
You need them high because this ends up becoming flat, like this, and it's not doing anything. See that angle? That's not helping you.
Yeah.
And so the load is just so heavy. Although this sticks on the hip so well, it doesn't do that as much as other packs. So then you run it up in this upper one, and now you have yourself an angle, which then drives that to the hips and helps take the pressure off your shoulder and other things. So I was impressed with that. Like, I liked it. Now, I didn't get a chance to use these for carrying quarters. They use that for elk. But I could see, we did play around with it a little bit, but with the bears, it didn't really matter. They're small quarters. But I could see how with an elk quarter, you throw that thing on there through the and the way that it's going to slide and run down your hip and be exactly in the center, think about it. That weight is not anywhere off your back, hanging out. It's not. It's like right down the two centers of gravity, and you put those things right there, and you stand up, and you're not going to be trying to do the sit up thing to keep the pack from going backward, and you're not going to be falling forward, because the pack's. It's like it goes right down your sides, and a lot of that weight is just right under your armpits. And I'm curious. I haven't tried it yet, but I think
dying to.
I think it's going to be. I think I'm going to be able to add some weight to that. So, on the hip belt here, I ran my bear spray. It fit on there fine. I have my other pocket right here. I like the initial Ascent pockets. I want one that's twice as deep as this. I don't know if they make one like that, but it's just, I have so much camera lenses and product and stuff in there. It's nice to have that. The stone pocket I threw on there because I only had one pocket from the guys, from Dennis and stuff, Dennis and Joe. So I needed more pockets. So I just threw another brand pocket on there.
Frankensteining it?
Yeah. And honestly, I just like these pockets better. I like how they're designed better. I like how they zip. They kind of have a shape a little better, a little more, where these are kind of they just cave in.
They're a bag.
And when I'm sitting here trying to unzip it, it's like I'm like fighting it. It's like a two-hand job. I think even the initial Ascent one could be even stiffer on the front back. But see how it unzips so easy? It's like zip. So they sent me the water bottle holder, which is perfect for the bottle I like to use, the GSI Microlite. Fits perfect. So that was the hip belt money. It's got the little pull thing here, and that's money as well. It's easy to tighten and easy to loosen. You can cinch it toward yourself to get that perfect fit. So that was good. And then one of my favorite things is the top lid. Okay. So the top lid on this is, to me, far superior to, I like the Stone Glacier top lid for its fit and function, but I hate trying to get stuff out of it. It's actually, that Stone Glacier top lid is actually a lot bigger than it looks. I always liken it to like that, bottomless purse that Hermione has on Harry Potter, where you just stick your arm in and just like, you can pull out, like whatever. It's everything can fit in there, but it doesn't look like it. But the problem with the Stone is you're just like, you can hardly find crap. You have to organize it into individual bags, and then you got to dig for bags. But check this initial Ascent bag out. It's got a little pocket on the bottom where I can run my tags and license and things like that. Easy to get to all the time. On the top, though, it's wide and large, like some of the pullouts I like to use. And you open it up, and you can see every single thing inside. Like I don't have a little hole I got to dig through to try to find stuff. Like the Stone is deep and triangle shaped, kind of pyramid shaped, and then it's got a little like zipper across the front, and you can't access things as easily. So here I can kind of see all the stuff and grab what I need quick. And this is bigger. I think it's got way more cubic inches in it. So I'm carrying a lot of stuff in the top lid, and I love having everything I need when I go to bed in my top lid. Like I don't want to deal with my backpack, toothbrush, toiletries. If I got to take a dump, my spoon, everything for eating, matches, my headlamps, backups, batteries, like everything, my stereo pin, everything I want just like right here in the top lid. I can detach it from my pack, which is right here. I can just detach it from my pack and throw it next to my sleeping bag and pad, and I got everything I need and climb in bed. Like right there next to me, okay? So that's how I like to run it. Now, it had a bar tack on this, but I take this thing off, multiple over and over again. And the bar tack, that's right here, this little sewn thing right here. And that's a pain in the butt for taking the lids off. So I just cut it and then burnt the end of it. So I think they ought to just finish that without a bar tack, so that everyone who gets one and just
what about putting like a little piece of Velcro on it?
I just don't think you need to.
Is it going to stay?
This thing just stays right here on the top lid, just like that, and then it's got its buckles in the front right here, to cinch it down on the front. But when I want to take it into the teepee at night or my shelter, I just want to pull it off and go. And that bar tack is stupid because you got to like feed it through and feed it back in, and it's pain. It's just better to cut it and run it. Okay. So that's a thing I really like, man. This bag is legit. So this thing has a few little, it looks like it's got a few, like a water bladder pocket right here. So I don't use a water bladder, but it looks like you can put one in here, and there's a little hose thing, and so you can have that right in the lid and then run into you, and then you can pull it out and access it easily instead of it being in the sleeve in the backpack, which is always a pain in the butt. So they got some cool features built into this. I don't run a bladder, like I said, but if I did, that's a pretty slick setup. Okay, so these side pockets are sweet right here. They're like ever expanding. You can just stuff endless amounts of your soft puffies, your jackets. I mean, like I'm in and out of those, and my gloves over and over again right here. So here's this Kuiu down and some gloves right here that are in there that stink like bear. And then over here, same thing on the other side, same kind of pocket. But also what you've got on the front here is you got the same kind of stretchy material pocket right here. And Ryan was telling me, one of the things he really liked about his XO pack, his XO mountain gear pack, was that it had this kind of meshy front. Well, I've never used it before. I wasn't a fan necessarily of how it looked, but then now that I've used it, I'm like, dude, it's again, never ending, expanding size. And I can throw in here all this puffy stuff and things I need to get to all the time. And it just meshes, keeps it all kind of tight. And I liked it. I really liked it. I was impressed. I was happy. So the sides here, what I like about this is, see how this cinch right here is on the side. You can cinch down your load, because a lot of times you don't want the heavy stuff sliding to the bottom after you've loaded it. Mm-hmm. So I'll put my sleeping bag, my pad, a lot of soft gear, little tiny tarp, lightweight stuff that's bulky down here in the bottom half. And then I want to cinch it down and hold that load down. And I can do that with the straps here across the front like this, and these cinches right here on the side. Same thing with any other pack I've ever run. You want to be able to tighten and compress the lower half, this lower third. And I can do the same thing with these bottom straps right here, which cinch down, okay? And they get everything that's soft and lightweight down here, boom, loaded and stiff. So that when I load some stuff on the top of that, heavier stuff, like even a bag of meat, that's in a waterproof, like contractor bag or a dry bag or some kind, I'll stuff that in next. But I don't want it to sink lower than that, those 2/3 when I do that. So it's nice to compress this, but then still have access to your pockets that are on the outside, and also still be able to cinch down a tripod or a rifle, because I always have to do that. So tripod slides in just like that, okay? But there's this buckle on the side that's extra, okay? So this is holding my load down. This is holding my load down. You got the straps off the top here that are holding my load in place, right? But I still want to be able to, when my load is set and I have it in my bag how I want it, I still need to be able to put things on the side like tripods and rifles or scopes and have them be independent of the load. Like I can't be unbuckling these to strap this on, because then my whole load blows out, and then my load shifts, and now everything's not where I want it to be, up against my back and up high. So, and it makes a huge difference. If you load your weight down here, and a lot of guys do, I'm telling you, man, it weighs, it's like it weighs 2 times as much. 100-pound load, 120-pound load loaded correctly in a pack versus loaded poorly in a pack is night and day. Mechanics matter. The design matter. How you pack matters. When that load is being carried properly in the proper positions within your pack, it gives you such an advantage because it just doesn't care. It just carries so much better. The load is where it needs to be. It's no different. Like an extreme example would be this. You have a 40-pound game bag in this hand and a 40-pound game bag in this hand. That's 80 pounds, right? And now you're just going to carry it for 7 miles. It's not a very efficient way to carry it, right? Like you're going to be burnt. It's the same load, but now you've put it in your pack in the upper 2/3, closer to your back, compressed down where it doesn't shift, and now you're carrying it. You could carry it forever, but in your hands or on your arms or over your shoulder, like it's the same weight, but being carried in an efficient way versus inefficient way. So I want my straps that hold my gear down, like my tripod, my rifle, other accessories, I want them to be independent of the load. Well, Initial Ascent has this strap down the side, which has a pull, which is interesting, instead of a buckle. Okay. Now, what I want to see changed a little bit here is I still want to see a buckle. I really do. I also want to see another strap. Because I want a strap here that holds the load and holds here, but I also want 2 straps that hold anything else I want that's independent of the load. And they have the frame back here, and they have some various attachments. And I'll get to that later when this comes off, because I think a lot of guys who have been running this, they run the meat shelf, which is legit. Best design I've ever seen, I think, for carrying meat with the meat shelf. Might actually convert me into doing that down the road. But I have to mess around with it a little more. And I'll get to that in a minute. But what I really like about this is, like I said, these loads are, this holds my pack down independent, but I don't like that I have to fish this through. Mm-hmm. I want to just put it on there and buckle it. I want to buckle it or unbuckle it. I want to get to it quick. I don't want to have to fish it through. Okay. And maybe they meant for this to cinch down the load, and then over here you use this, but I find like this is holding my load where I want it to be. I don't want to undo that buckle. So I also think that one thing I want to talk to them about is the position of the buckle or the size. These buckles slip if they don't have the right angle. Okay. So when you do put like a piece of like a carbon in here like this tripod, and you cinch it down, see how it's up against the tripod? Well, that's not the right angle right here. And so it just slips loose, and it slips loose, and it slips loose. So the same thing is with the rifle. So if this buckle were over here instead of here, you could cinch it up and you'd have this soft material on it instead. I'm not sure. I'm not a designer. I'm not sure what the best. All I can say is that it's a lot of times the way the angle of the buckle is, it interferes with whatever it is I'm trying to strap down, and it works itself loose. Now, this is pretty common with a lot of packs. This kind of fixes that, right? Because see, look how this cinch right here is off the back of the pack, and see how there's no angle problems, right here, and it's pretty tight. I just ran into it here with this buckle doing this a lot. Okay. And I'm sure I just think that there's some things to do with the buckles that could be improved with those angles. Okay. I maybe putting the buckle on this side, the male, female over here, and just have a strap across. I'm not sure that would be better, but it kind of ties into the meat shelf on the back, which I'll get to in a minute, leaving it the way it is. But maybe some more locations to put a couple of straps on the side. And maybe I'm just different, but I've got those heavy tripods, heavy rifles. I got trekking poles I slide in there often. I got oars for boats that we're running that I slip in the side. And I want a really efficient cinch system right here to really get it. And then when I cinch it, I need those angles to stay proper so that it doesn't come loose. It doesn't come loose when that angle is straight like that. But if it gets pressured this way, it just pops, right? And then you're constantly fighting like a tripod falling off the side of your body. It's a simple fix. And I'm going to talk to those guys about that. Simple. I don't think it's too hard to add a few little details there with how the lashing system works. And we're just expedition style, a lot of gear. So having ways to do that, I think, is useful. Same thing on this side. This one has a longer sleeve pocket, which I used here and there. But again, often that pocket is part of cinching the whole load down. It might be that they could design that so that it's independent of the main load as well. I got my mind thinking. So see this pocket here? See how it's trapped by this? It might be possible, just like this, this thing can run through here and you still have access to that bigger sleeve or something. Not sure. Not sure that's necessary. But those are just some minor things that I came across. Now, I really love this handle back here. I broke mine off the stone. I just, had a 140-pound pack or something, and it just ripped off. And it's reflective, and so you find it. But I will say I trashed it. I mean, I used it like heavy, and you can see the reflective, other things coming off. I think this could be sewn or built a little bit different so that it's, but I don't really care necessarily about that. This thing will never break. No, this webbing and the way that it goes through the frame back here, it's never going to break. So the way that this thing is attached, the handle, it's never going to, you can take it off if you want, and it would be an easy fix but the reflective, I mean, I'm using this a lot because you get this thing loaded and then you're like heaving it up 130 pounds, to get in position or put it on a hill or whatever. Like I said, the stone I just ripped out and then I didn't have a handle. It pissed me off.
That sucks.
Easy for them to sew it in and fix it. The stone also, I had the stays ripped through the bottom. Easy for them to fix it. They just sewed it back up. It's just in their design. This was never going to have the stays come out because it's not built like that. No failure point. I also broke the stays in my stone, but I had I was carrying the water cooler from the office in the upper 2/3 without anything in the bottom. And when I set the stone down on the ground, when I got up the mountain, it just snapped the stays. With a load that heavy load, but with some support inside the pack at the bottom, how you'd normally use it, it would probably not break on you, but this is never going to break ever. It's just built in a way. Plus, I mean, like they said, they gave a lifetime warranty with this, and I can see why. So anyway, going back to here, I don't like the pull string. And I think that just by having a roll top lid, you could add, a whole nother 1,000 cubic inches of space, and it won't hit the back of your head and stuff. It'll ride nice, and you can throw so again, goes back to loading. The bottom third or the bottom quarter would be super lightweight stuff. The middle 2 quarters would be heavier stuff like meat and heavy gear. The top last quarter would be more lightweight stuff like your sleeping bag and other things, and or whatever you want to load up on the top. Maybe your food, although food can be heavy. But basically, your cook pot and some other stuff that's bulky but not heavy, throw that in that top. But you could get this thing just the cubic inches you needed just with a roll top lid. And then whatever part of the lid you don't use, you just roll it over and buckle it. Okay. and you're good to go. And they talked about doing that. Okay. So I think that's a design thing they're going to do in an upcoming bag here real soon. Now, the other thing about this pack that was pretty handy was these zippers on the side. You can access a lot right here. Boom, get into all your stuff, access, pull stuff out. Now, in my opinion, though, this design is to me less efficient than
like a big center strip.
What's that?
Like a big center strip going down the middle of the bag.
No, I think a beaver tail is kind of the way to go, because with a beaver tail, it's like a horseshoe. It goes up, around, and zips down, and then it folds out. So you still have access to the pockets that are in the beaver tail. Like these pockets would be a little bit smaller, maybe. But in general, you'd unzip it, it'd zip across and back down, and then it folds out.
Yeah.
Well, it's like opening the door to your garage. And when you have it designed like that, boom, you can lay it out there and you can go, I want this here, here, here. You can stack like Tetris, Legos, like you can put in there the load exactly how you want, zip it shut, and then cinch it down. And so you can really place your gear right where you want it and your load where you want it. And then when you need to get to something, I'm still peeking. This is back to the Harry Potter purse, I'm still like just digging around. But I'm not digging around if it's a garage door. It opens. You can find everything. So I think that bag design is a little bit better. Overall, though, these are all just kind of small things that I would like to see a little different. As far as the foundation of this thing, I wouldn't hesitate to run it just the way it is. The thing just rides nice on the hips and everything. So check this out. This is pretty cool right here. And they went through it, but I kind of was skeptical because that's how I am when it comes to meat packing shelves. But real quick, if I come over here and I take these load lifters and I pull them out right here, simple, okay? I pull them out like that. The bag itself just lifts off this frame right here. And as soon as it lifts off the frame, you can unbuckle it here and here, the bottom buckle. There's your whole bag right there. And you have this piece back here, and I'll get to that in a sec. And so what's pretty cool about this is you have your bottom buckles that you undo here. And again, this is a bar tack thing. I don't want to deal with bar tacks right here. I just want it cut and smooth, because if I'm going to end up pulling this on and off, I don't want to have to sit here and fish this through and deal with that. It's not that hard, but just melt the ends and just let it be. I mean, they might, if they start to unravel, okay, big deal. Just burn them again. Anybody can do it. But that way, to me, this thing just rips off in 2 seconds. Because the slowest part of pulling this bag off is the bar tacks right here I'm dealing with right now. If it was just didn't have bar tacks on these straps, it'd be off. So your bag comes off, which I actually did a couple of times when we were packing out, and I had this thing loaded at 100 pounds. I wanted to take off and go on a quick little hunt with the guys, and I got to carry my tripod, all my camera gear, a little tarp maybe, or rain jacket or something. I want to just run and gun, but I don't want to undo my whole pack. Well, I just basically pulled the bag off. Everything's still packed, situated, loaded where I want it, laid it down on the ground, and voila, I had this pack board right here, basically. And you can see it's just this buckle. So I could have all the essentials I need in my hip pockets, okay, and all the essentials I need in this lid, so that when I ditch my pack, I can just run and gun. This thing, all I do is put these load lifters back into place on the top here, throw my lid back on, which is just, again, you just cinch it back up like this. But check this out. Right here, There's this like mini backpack right here underneath. You can load your meat and everything in that upper 2/3 where it needs. You notice how it doesn't come out down here. It comes up out here where you want that load. So you throw your meat and your quarters and all your crap right here. It's riding right where it needs to be, firmly in there. It's not shifting and sliding down inside your pack. Usually I poo-poo on these kind of designs because it's like you need a science degree to get it off the frame. And it's a pain in the butt. But this, man, it just popped right off. And then inside, then here, you still have a little pocket right there with a little cinch on the top so you can throw a jacket and some things in there. You've got these buckles across the back here that cinch. And then this goes to your top lid. You know, you throw some stuff in there and you buckle this to the top lid. And you have like a stream down backpack. Also, it was so light. I was like, dude, you can ditch that run and gun and you don't have anything other than what you need. You've got a couple of stuff in your pouches. You got a little bit in your game lid. You got a little bit in this pocket and the rest of this thing. So if you look at this, it takes the same buckles that you're using to buckle your pack into place to buckle your meat load here. See this?
That's cool.
And down here too. So your meat load,
just reusing the same buckles.
You're just reusing the same buckles. And see how you got that load just strapped? And you got your top lid on the top for the day, everything you needed. It's pretty cool having this. Now, the only thing, and I need to talk to these guys about it to see what they've thought of, and they probably have, and I just don't know because I'm still learning the pack. But when you get this meat shelf like that, okay, and you have your lid on the top, and you have your jacket and a little extra rain gear or something right there, this buckles, you can also strap more to the back of this because you got straps here that go across the back. So I put my tripod back there or my big camera lens, and they go across the back just like any backpack. You got these two right here to cinch stuff to. And you have like a quick little run and gun. I had my big long lens, my tripod, both in here, strapped down. And then I have my rain jacket and the tarp right there, a little bit of food. And then I had my camera stuff here. I have one camera I'm hanging on my chest. The other one is the long lens right here strapped. And I am light-footed, fancy-free, running through the mountains, right? Got a day's worth of food, a little water bottles in my hip already, okay? So we go up, we run and gun, and if I killed something, I have plenty of room to put the meat there in the game bags and still put my camera off to the side, my tripod off to the side, and hike out of there no problem and get back to my main load and my main camp and everything else. And all the blood and everything kind of stays or whatever stays with just this frame. I messed around with it a couple of times just so I could run through it. It was pretty slick. It carries the load great. I mean, better, of course, than when it's inside your backpack itself, because you're really putting that load cinched tight right up against the frame where it doesn't shift and it's heavy and it's up in that upper space so that you're carrying it efficiently. So the only thing that I was like, okay, guys, well, what happens next? Like, what happens when I want to pack out all my game meat plus my camp, which always happens to Ryan and I. I couldn't figure out really, and I don't think it's built necessarily to handle that. You know, if I put my pack if I load the meat shelf and everything, and then I put my pack on the outside of it, it sticks out pretty far, right? It also doesn't have the attachments it needs, though, you know, because you're kind of using them here, unless I'm missing something, okay? And so it ends up being something for an expedition-style hunt, something that certainly if I spike out and I run up the mountain and we kill something and we hike it out, it's ideal for just run and gun and for a day, for the all day long being minimal, and then killing something, throw it on there on the board and packing out without having to carry a whole pack all day long with all this extra or with all your gear or whatever. Okay. It's pretty handy, and it is lighter, just you drop that whole bag, which has some weight to it. It just feels pretty light, pretty light. So I liked it, but expedition style, we're carrying the meat, the hide, and our back in our camera gear, everything all out at once because we're nuts. And I didn't really see how I could really do that and use the meat shelf. So for the actual big expedition pack out, I ended up, just loading everything in the bottom of the pack, cinching the load down, putting the meat in that middle 2/3 or upper 2/3 of the pack, and then stuffing my soft stuff all the way around it and across the top and cinching that load down, getting the meat kind of in a similar position without using this bag. And then all the extra pockets and all the top and the top lid and all that stuff, I could stuff all the stuff around and fill out that pack, and then I could carry it out. And that's what we did. But I got to admit, I really do like this meat shelf design and the versatility of that. But anyway, so that's kind of the rundown. I'm actually quite impressed. I wondered, you see how on this side of the pack you have this, and I'll have to ask the guys this, but you see how you have this, the initial Ascent, how the carbon looks like this, and you got the face, and it looks pretty nice actually on this side. It's kind of cool looking, futuristic, whatever. But you don't see this side except for on this rare occasion. What's outward facing is this side. And this side looks like an unfinished construction job.
A car or a boat that's waiting to be painted.
Right. So I'm wondering, can they not laminate this or flip it around so that this is an aesthetic thing. So that this side that you see all the time, and that's really, or this side that looks really nice, is actually on this side. So you can see how the finish look on this side, which everyone has access to. Because that's one thing about this pack that when I first saw it, that I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that. It was simply because of the finish on this side. It was, it just didn't have that same professional look. But when you look at the frame from this side, you're like, that's pretty cool. That's cool. That's interesting. So I think they're actually better off flipping that around. I could be wrong. I need to ask those guys. Maybe there's a reason for it. Lots of questions. We're going to hook up with those guys and talk to them a little bit more. But anyway, that's the initial Ascent pack. Kind of, in my opinion, little short rundown based on my experience. I think that it carries heavy where it shines. The heavier it gets, the more it shines, the more it outperforms other packs. I think that the stiffness of it, when you're hiking through the woods and climbing over logs and doing other stuff, that makes it less comfortable. But I would rather run the stiffness. It's the same thing when I ran other companies' products in the past. People would say, I really like this really, really flexible backpack. Yeah, you do, until you load it really heavy, and then you're like, this pack doesn't feel good. I would rather have the pack feel great with heavy loads than feel great, I can deal with any pack that's a little bit stiff when it's not heavy. It's when the load is heavy that it matters. And I just been thinking about the week after week of hiking and hunting and without that compression or that feel on my spine. It's nice carrying that load so much on the hips. My back didn't really, like a lot of times, like I said, when I go to bed after 2 or 3 weeks of this, that right side of my lumbar just kind of flares up and gets a little tight and stiff and starts to swell up on one side a little bit. And I'm like, and it always just gets fatigued. I don't know why my right side does it. My left doesn't. I'm right-handed.
Your spine's probably not lined up. You probably shift off to the right just a hair.
I don't think it's that. I think I just am right-handed, and it's something where I kind of, when I climb over something, I probably stabilize with that side more.
Push off with that side.
Something. I don't know, but it flares up a little bit. Well, with this load, with the way this pack carries, it didn't do anything. Like at night when I crawled in bed, my back was not fatigued. It was not tired. It was not like I got to lay down. My back is just tired. It wasn't tired. The pack just doesn't use your back that much. So The straps, I kind of want to mess around with the guy, talk to the guys a little bit about the straps. They felt great. I'm just wondering if they can't be even better. I don't know enough about foams and materials.
We're going to have them on real soon.
So, but, man, a couple of minor tweaks, and I think this could be like one of my favorite packs. I'm still going to run that Seek Outside. That's the next pack I really want to put through the paces and test. And it's got its own unique design. I put some heavy weights in it, but I just want to bang it up. I want to bang it up and beat the crap out of it to really tell. I banged the crap out of this thing. I was not gentle. I just ran it through the ringer.
I say it looks a little...
I don't see that thing breaking, really. I mean, the pull string, that part with the rivet came loose. I think they need to get rid of that and just do a roll top anyway. The other thing that I'm curious about, and this is, running different brands. When I toyed around with the Kafaru, it had locking buckles. So when you buckle something, it can't slip because the buckles lock. Now, it doesn't necessarily come with that. We threw a lot of locking buckles on so that no matter the angle or whatever, you tighten it, it just sticks. And that could be the solution for some of these side angles and things I'm dealing with, is just put a locking buckle on it. And then when you pull it, it just locks. But it's inconvenient when you want to undo the lock until you get the hang of it.
It's tricky.
But locking buckles are handy. They can solve a lot of problems, because if you mostly running locking buckles, your load never slips loose, ever. And when you're strapping different objects at different angles on there, sometimes those things can work themselves loose as you're jostling that load around. So locking buckles, again, could solve that problem. But the one thing that Stone does that I noticed, and I was really unsure of it when I first saw it, is their webbing is really coarse, super coarse, and feels cheap. That was the first thing I noticed, was the buckle and the webbing. I was like, this stuff's cheap. It's going to fray. It's not smooth. It's not lifelong lasting like this smooth, nice feeling webbing is. Well, it can wear loose, and it does fray, and it does need to be replaced at times. But the upside to the Stone's webbing and buckles is they don't slip. They look like they could. They look like they should, because they look like a JanSport, like cheap webbing and buckle. But the coarseness in the buckles, they hold. You cinch them down, they don't move on you. You don't feel it. Like, your load lifters don't change. Your buckle, your shoulder straps, they don't change. They stick. They lock. So I'd be curious about that. That's a thing I really liked about the Stone, is it doesn't shift. This, now and then, I could feel the straps are so long lasting, and the webbing is so good, and the way it fits in those loops. If you don't maintain the angles, they can slip a little bit, just like any smooth strap in a buckle. And that's where Kafaru we'd run the locking clips, locking buckles in there, and that fixed that problem. I'm not sure which I like more. I think I like the locking buckle idea a little more, just because, like on my Stone, the black straps, I buckle, run them so much, and they would break down and fall apart because they're coarse and they're not super tough, well woven, tight. I don't know, but cool experience to try it, run it. I'm really pleased with the pack. I'd say, guys should check it out. Like, sometimes there's a lot of controversy around backpacks. I want nothing to do with it. Okay. I'm doing me, and my body and what I like is unique to me. Not everybody runs the same way, likes the same things. So whenever you get a backpack review or someone talks to you about a pack, take it for what it is. But if you really want to find out if it's for you, the best way is to get your hands on one and use it. And use 2 or 3, but don't just use it with a light load or a moderate load. Like, really load that thing up and go on some miles. And you'll know real quick whether that pack is going to work for you or not. My opinion on this one, it's going to work well for a lot of guys. A lot of guys, especially people that have any kind of low back or back fatigue or weakness at all. And especially, I think, for guys that struggle with heavy loads, I think that you don't need a lot of upper body strength and core strength with this pack. It puts that load right on those legs and on those hips and sticks. And so that load really, man, I wonder how Dad would run it. I think it's a great pack for the way he carries. That lower body for a lot of guys is pretty strong. It's the upper body and their core that can be a problem. And this pack really drives the weight down there. I mean, it really does. It's a unique design. So, but it's stiff. So anyway, cool, folks. I hope you liked it. If you got questions, leave them in the YouTube comments. That's where we respond the most. We engage the most on YouTube. I get to emails every now and then, admittedly, not very much. My DMs get so full, I can't even, when I'm gone for 2 or 3 weeks and I come back, I don't get to a lot of those. But we sort and filter and keep track of our comments on YouTube. And they go into inventory of unanswered questions, and it's easy for us to get to questions there. So we'd like to engage there. So check out, if you want to leave comments and engage with us, go to YouTube, go to the comment section there. Hope that was helpful. Hope it was useful. And check us out over at locals.com. Over there is our Gritty Stealthy community. And we are publishing content that's exclusive to that community over on that platform. You can get the locals.com app from the App Store, and you can become a member. You join up, and it's about $7 a month. And if you become a member, we're going to be dropping films. There's already a bunch of films over there that no one has ever seen unless you're a member. And we're going to continue to do that, put exclusive series over there, and exclusive podcast content over there on that Locals. And we're just now ramping up on our content, so we're going to have a lot of films dropping probably in June. And then through June, July, August, we're just going to be going hard with videos, hunt films from all the bear hunting. And if you join us on Locals, you're going to get extra shows over there. So, and we're going to start doing we've been waiting for Locals to be able to live stream so Ryan and I can sit down and live stream with the Locals community. With this Gritty Stealthy community on a weekly basis, but they haven't quite got that built into the system yet. But it is a social platform, so everyone who's a member, everyone who's joined up can leave comments and post pictures, and there's a lot of cool engagement. You can ask questions to that community there, and it's a growing community, and it's pretty cool to be, part of that. And so if you want to join us over there, check it out. Thanks for tuning in. Stay gritty.